The question of identity. The air inside the alien ship was thick with anticipation. Every inch of the sleek, seamless walls felt alive, as if the vessel itself were watching, waiting for the first true exchange between the human and the alien species. Ambassador Sarah Taylor stood in awe, her pulse quickening as she took in the sheer size and complexity of the creature before her. The alien was far larger than any human, its towering figure casting a long, imposing shadow across the otherwise empty chamber. Despite its imposing size, there was a sense of calm that radiated from it, a calm that seemed to say, "I am not here to harm you." The alien did not move, its elongated body still and rigid, as it stared down at Sarah with its 4 black eyes. Eyes that seemed to absorb every detail of her being, reading her with an intensity she had never experienced. There were no visible signs of emotion, no flickers of understanding or confusion on the alien's face. It was as if it was waiting for her to speak, to initiate the conversation that had brought her here, to define the next chapter in their encounter. Sarah had spent years preparing for this moment, studying languages, alien cultures, and the intricacies of intergalactic diplomacy. But nothing could have prepared her for this. Nothing could have prepared her for the raw alienness of the creature in front of her. It was not simply the physical differences, the vast size, the multiple arms, the strange head. It was something deeper, something far more challenging. She could feel her throat tightening as she began to speak, trying to keep her composure. "I'm Ambassador Sarah Taylor, sent by humanity to establish peaceful relations between our species," she began, her voice steady, though her mind raced. "I come with a message of peace and cooperation, with the intent to learn from one another and grow together." The alien responded immediately, but not with words. Instead, it pointed to her uniform, its movements slow and deliberate. It gestured to the insignia on her suit, the symbol of her office. Sarah instinctively touched the emblem, wondering what the alien was thinking. Was it confused by the design? Or perhaps it was questioning the significance of such symbols. She had expected questions about humanity's technological capabilities, its knowledge of space travel, or its place in the universe, but this was different. The alien did not seem to care about the grand ideas of peace or cooperation. Instead, it wanted to know more about the small, seemingly insignificant details that made humans who they were. It pointed to her suit again and repeated the question that had begun to frustrate Sarah earlier. "Why did you build your insignias this way? What purpose do they serve?" Sarah paused, her brow furrowing. This was not the question she had anticipated. "The insignia represents my role," she said carefully, trying to maintain her diplomatic demeanor. "It's a symbol that shows my position as an ambassador, my duty to represent humanity. It signifies my commitment to peace and understanding." The alien did not respond immediately. Instead, it tilted its head, as if considering her words, trying to make sense of them. Sarah could feel the weight of the silence bearing down on her. There was something unsettling about the alien's gaze, something that made her feel small, as though her very understanding of the universe was being questioned. She had always believed that humans were unique in their individuality, that their ability to think independently, to create and innovate, set them apart from any other species. But this alien didn't seem to understand that. It didn't comprehend the need for symbols, for individuality. It was clear that it was not interested in understanding humanity's identity through the lens of a single individual. It was focused on something deeper, something that cut to the heart of what it meant to be human. And then the alien spoke again, its voice strange and distorted, as if the translator device was struggling to keep up with the complexity of its thoughts. "Your insignia, identical. All humans the same. Why?" Sarah felt her stomach drop. The question was so simple, yet it struck her with the force of a revelation. She had never considered it that way before. To the alien, the idea of everyone wearing the same insignia, the same symbol, was baffling. To the alien, it seemed like a paradox, something that represented individuality while also being identical across the board. The alien seemed confused, its massive form shifting slightly as it processed her explanation. Its 4 eyes focused on her with an intensity that made her feel as though every word she spoke was being dissected, analyzed, and scrutinized. It was as if it could not fathom the concept of individuality, the idea that humans were not part of a collective mind, not part of a unified, hive-like existence. The alien's thoughts seemed to run counter to everything Sarah knew about her species. "What you describe," the alien said, its voice harsh and mechanical, "is not individuality. It is a collection of many pieces, each standing alone, yet bound together. Your species, so small, yet fragmented. Your technology, your ships, how can they function without a shared mind? Without unity?" Sarah felt her heart race as the alien's words sank in. This was the real question, the real test. The alien didn't just want to know about humanity's technology or its political structures. It wanted to know about humanity itself, how humans could function without being part of a hive mind, without a collective consciousness. To the alien, the very concept of individuality was alien. It could not understand how something so small, so isolated, could exist without being part of a larger whole. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. The weight of the question hung heavy in the air between them. She had always known that humans were different, that they were unique in their ability to think independently, to act with free will. But now, standing in front of this alien, she realized how alien that concept was to everything else in the universe. "How do you do it?" the alien asked, its voice softer now, almost curious. "How do you function without a shared mind? Without unity?" Sarah swallowed, her mind racing. She wanted to explain that humanity's strength lay in its diversity, in its ability to think and act independently. She wanted to show the alien that it was this very individuality that had allowed humanity to thrive. But how could she convey that to a species that had never known anything but a collective consciousness? It's not easy," she said slowly, choosing her words carefully. "But it's what makes us who we are. We are individuals, but we work together. We create together. We solve problems together. And in the end, it is our differences, our individual perspectives, that allow us to grow, to innovate, to overcome obstacles." The alien was silent for a long moment, its 4 eyes never leaving Sarah's face. It seemed to be processing her words, trying to understand the concept that was so fundamentally human, yet so utterly incomprehensible to it. Finally, it spoke again, its voice distant and thoughtful. "Your species, strange, but perhaps there is something to learn from this." The conversation shifted after that. The alien, though still deeply perplexed by humanity's inability to function as a hive mind, seemed willing to listen. Sarah could feel the tides changing. It was clear that this encounter was not just about technological exchange or diplomatic agreements. It was about understanding what it meant to be human, and how that difference could bring something new to the universe. As the conversation continued, Sarah realized that this was only the beginning. The alien was just as curious about humanity as she was about it. And though they were worlds apart in their understanding, they were both willing to learn from each other. The invitation. Humanity had always looked up to the stars with a sense of wonder, as if the sky was a vast ocean of possibilities, untouched and waiting to be explored. With each technological breakthrough, each new discovery, the belief that humans were on the cusp of something greater only deepened. Faster-than-light travel had become a reality, opening the gates to distant stars. Colonization missions, once a distant dream, were now part of humanity's ongoing expansion into the cosmos. But for all their accomplishments, humanity remained alone. Or so they thought. The galaxies had been searched for signs of life. Hundreds of planets were catalogued, with biospheres teeming with life in many forms. Yet, each time the scientists and explorers found life, it was almost always primitive. Tiny organisms, simple creatures, or at most highly complex but unintelligent animals. There had been no sign of a species capable of communication, culture, or technology. Despite humanity's growing dominance over space, the silence of the universe had persisted. Earth remained the center of all sentient thought, and there was an arrogance to it, a belief that humans were truly unique in their intelligence. Then, one day, everything changed. It began with a signal. A faint, barely detectable electromagnetic pulse that was caught by one of the deepest space probes from humanity's SETI program. The pulse was irregular, structured in a way that couldn't be chalked up to natural cosmic radiation. At first, it was dismissed as a glitch, perhaps interference from distant stars or random solar winds. But as more data came in, the irregularity became undeniable. It was artificial, it was intentional, and it was directed at humanity. The excitement in the scientific community was immediate, and soon the entire world was buzzing with the news. The message wasn't anything complex, just a series of simple beeps, almost like a game of cosmic Morse code. But the implication was enormous. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. Someone, something, was out there, reaching out. At first, the messages were cryptic, the data too simple to provide any clear answers. But there was enough to go on. The pulses contained patterns, repeating sequences that indicated intelligence. The human scientists and engineers worked tirelessly, using the best translation software and signal analysis tools available to make sense of the messages. Slowly, with each decoding, the complexity of the signals grew. It wasn't just random noise anymore. It was a language, and it was a language that, bit by bit, humanity started to understand. For days, Earth held its collective breath. What was this other species like? Were they peaceful? Were they hostile? The uncertainties were as vast as the stars themselves. But the one thing that was certain was that the next step was coming. The alien species wanted to communicate. They were reaching out, asking for a meeting. They wanted to meet humanity in person. The call was simple but profound. One human, selected to represent all of humankind, would travel to meet these aliens at a location designated in the message. It would be dangerous, risky, but the opportunity to make first contact with another intelligent species was too great to ignore. Volunteers flooded the SETI program, eager to take on the mission. The selection process was swift, but deliberate. The mission required someone who was diplomatic, who could remain calm in the face of uncertainty, and who could be a true representative of humanity's best qualities. The choice was made. Ambassador Sarah Taylor, a veteran of human space exploration, was to be the one to take humanity's first step into the unknown. She was no stranger to the stars, having led numerous missions to distant exoplanets, each one more challenging than the last. But this was something entirely different. This was not just a scientific mission. This was a mission to define the future of humanity, to establish a foothold among the stars, and to show the universe that humanity was ready for the next chapter. Sarah's journey was unlike any she had ever undertaken. The ship that would take her to the rendezvous point was sleek, fast, and equipped with the latest in exploration technology. It would take weeks to travel to the coordinates provided by the alien message, but the journey itself was uneventful, until they reached the designated location. As Sarah's ship arrived at the coordinates, she found herself in an eerie, desolate part of space. There were no nearby stars, no planets, nothing but the infinite void. At first, her sensors detected no other ships. She was alone. The isolation was unnerving, and for a moment, doubt crept into her mind. What if this was a trap? What if humanity was walking into something they couldn't even comprehend? The thought lingered but was quickly dismissed. This was what she had signed up for. The unknown had always been the greatest frontier. She began another sweep of the area, hoping to pick up something, anything. And then, just as her hopes were starting to fade, she detected a faint signal. There, in the dark expanse, was another ship. It was small, barely visible against the backdrop of space. Its design was unlike anything Sarah had ever seen. It wasn't built for speed or efficiency, nor did it look like anything that could fit the description of an alien vessel. It appeared almost organic, like a living thing, with smooth curves and a shimmer that seemed to bend the light. The alien ship was nearly invisible, hidden in the vast emptiness of space, yet it was unmistakable. And as Sarah's ship drew closer, a strange sense of awe washed over her. This was it. This was the moment humanity had waited for. Sarah sent out a signal, a simple greeting to announce her arrival. Almost immediately, she received a response. The alien ship had detected her presence, and the exchange of signals began. It wasn't as smooth as she had hoped. There were no immediate answers, no clear responses. The communications were cryptic, the alien responses puzzling in their simplicity. But through a combination of patience, deduction, and technological ingenuity, Sarah was able to establish a communication link. And then the invitation came. The alien ship extended a signal that was unmistakably welcoming. It wasn't a message of hostility, but a simple, clear directive. Come aboard. We await you. There was no time to waste. Sarah knew that this moment would define her career, humanity's future, and the course of all subsequent interactions with other life forms. She prepared to board the alien ship, knowing that the first steps into this new, unknown world would be more than just a simple meeting. It was the beginning of a new chapter for humanity, one that would challenge everything they knew about themselves and the universe around them. As Sarah entered the alien vessel, she was struck by its strange beauty. The walls were smooth, seamless, with no visible doors or windows. It was as if the ship was one continuous piece of living metal. There was no hint of the advanced technology that powered it. The interior was stark, minimalistic, yet elegant in its design. It was a stark contrast to the human-made ships she was familiar with. And then she saw it. The alien. It was unlike anything she could have imagined, towering, imposing, and beautiful in its own way. Its body was a mix of organic and mechanical, with limbs that twisted in unnatural ways and a head that seemed to float above its body, suspended by unknown forces. There were no eyes to meet hers, no mouth to speak. It was entirely alien, and yet there was an unmistakable intelligence in its presence. The first words the alien spoke to Sarah were unexpected and strange. "Why did you build your ship this way?" Sarah was taken aback. She hadn't anticipated this kind of question. She didn't build the ship. It was designed by human engineers. But the alien wasn't asking about the function of the ship. It was asking about the design itself. It was trying to understand why humans made the choices they did, why they thought the way they did. It was the beginning of a conversation that would change everything humanity thought they knew about themselves. As the conversation unfolded, Sarah realized that the alien wasn't just interested in humanity's technology, it was interested in humanity itself. It wanted to understand the very essence of what made humans different from the countless other species they had encountered. And this question would form the core of their ongoing dialogue. The question of identity. The air inside the alien ship was thick with anticipation. Every inch of the sleek, seamless walls felt alive, as if the vessel itself were watching, waiting for the first true exchange between the human and the alien species. Ambassador Sarah Taylor stood in awe, her pulse quickening as she took in the sheer size and complexity of the creature before her. The alien was far larger than any human, its towering figure casting a long, imposing shadow across the otherwise empty chamber. Despite its imposing size, there was a sense of calm that radiated from it, a calm that seemed to say, "I am not here to harm you." The alien did not move, its elongated body still and rigid, as it stared down at Sarah with its 4 black eyes. Eyes that seemed to absorb every detail of her being, reading her with an intensity she had never experienced. There were no visible signs of emotion, no flickers of understanding or confusion on the alien's face. It was as if it was waiting for her to speak, to initiate the conversation that had brought her here, to define the next chapter in their encounter. Sarah had spent years preparing for this moment, studying languages, alien cultures, and the intricacies of intergalactic diplomacy. But nothing could have prepared her for this. Nothing could have prepared her for the raw alienness of the creature in front of her. It was not simply the physical differences, the vast size, the multiple arms, the strange head. It was something deeper, something far more challenging. She could feel her throat tightening as she began to speak, trying to keep her composure. "I'm Ambassador Sarah Taylor, sent by humanity to establish peaceful relations between our species," she began, her voice steady, though her mind raced. "I come with a message of peace and cooperation, with the intent to learn from one another and grow together." The alien responded immediately, but not with words. Instead, it pointed to her uniform, its movements slow and deliberate. It gestured to the insignia on her suit, the symbol of her office. Sarah instinctively touched the emblem, wondering what the alien was thinking. Was it confused by the design? Or perhaps it was questioning the significance of such symbols. She had expected questions about humanity's technological capabilities, its knowledge of space travel, or its place in the universe, but this was different. The alien did not seem to care about the grand ideas of peace or cooperation. Instead, it wanted to know more about the small, seemingly insignificant details that made humans who they were. It pointed to her suit again and repeated the question that had begun to frustrate Sarah earlier. "Why did you build your insignias this way? What purpose do they serve?" Sarah paused, her brow furrowing. This was not the question she had anticipated. "The insignia represents my role," she said carefully, trying to maintain her diplomatic demeanor. "It's a symbol that shows my position as an ambassador, my duty to represent humanity. It signifies my commitment to peace and understanding." The alien did not respond immediately. Instead, it tilted its head, as if considering her words, trying to make sense of them. Sarah could feel the weight of the silence bearing down on her. There was something unsettling about the alien's gaze, something that made her feel small, as though her very understanding of the universe was being questioned. She had always believed that humans were unique in their individuality, that their ability to think independently, to create and innovate, set them apart from any other species. But this alien didn't seem to understand that. It didn't comprehend the need for symbols, for individuality. It was clear that it was not interested in understanding humanity's identity through the lens of a single individual. It was focused on something deeper, something that cut to the heart of what it meant to be human. And then the alien spoke again, its voice strange and distorted, as if the translator device was struggling to keep up with the complexity of its thoughts. "Your insignia, identical. All humans the same. Why?" Sarah felt her stomach drop. The question was so simple, yet it struck her with the force of a revelation. She had never considered it that way before. To the alien, the idea of everyone wearing the same insignia, the same symbol, was baffling. To the alien, it seemed like a paradox, something that represented individuality while also being identical across the board. "We are not all the same," Sarah replied slowly, struggling to find the right words. "Each human is an individual. We each have our own experiences, our own ideas, our own desires. The insignia does not define us as one. It is a symbol of our collective unity, but it does not erase our individuality. It's just a marker that signifies our role in the broader context of society." The nature of the mind. As the conversation progressed, the gap between Sarah and the alien widened further. But with each word exchanged, a bridge began to form, a bridge of understanding, of curiosity, and of shared exploration. Sarah couldn't help but feel a deep sense of awe and trepidation at the complexity of the encounter. The alien species, which she had once thought of as a distant, unknowable intelligence, was revealing itself to be as baffling as it was profound. The more she learned, the more she realized just how much humanity had to offer in terms of understanding the nature of individuality, autonomy, and free thought. But the alien seemed unyielding in its quest to comprehend the human mind. For hours, the alien observed her with unblinking eyes, its mind clearly racing to make sense of everything Sarah had said. Every question, every response, seemed to scratch the surface of an infinite well of thought. But there was always more. More to understand, more to question. And the more Sarah explained the concept of individuality, the uniqueness of each human, the vast difference between each person's experiences and thoughts, the more she could sense the alien's confusion. It was not anger or judgment, but rather a deep, unsettling curiosity. "Tell me more," the alien finally spoke, its voice softer now, as though its previous incredulity had given way to a genuine desire for knowledge. "How do you think? Without a shared mind, without connection, how do you coordinate your thoughts, your actions?" Sarah paused, her mind spinning for the best way to answer. She had spent years studying diplomacy, technology, and languages, but this was unlike any other diplomatic discussion she had ever encountered. The idea that a species might not understand the concept of independent thought was overwhelming. She had to remind herself that the alien wasn't judging. It was merely trying to understand the essence of human existence. "We think," she began slowly, "because each of us has our own experiences, our own memories, and our own senses. These all shape the way we view the world. And it's through these unique experiences that we make decisions, take actions, and solve problems." She paused, looking up at the towering alien, trying to gauge its understanding. "Our minds aren't connected in the way you might think. We're independent, but that doesn't mean we're disconnected." The alien tilted its head, the multiple appendages that adorned its body shifting in the same slow, deliberate manner as its gaze. Explaining it said simply, as if Sarah's words were still too difficult to fully comprehend. "We work together, yes," she continued, "but not because we are all part of the same mind. We work together because we choose to, because we understand that our individual actions can benefit others, and that cooperation leads to progress." She could feel her heart racing with the weight of her words. Could she truly explain the depth of humanity's belief in its own individuality, in its capacity to think freely and act autonomously? Our unity is not born of a collective mind. It's a unity of purpose, of choice. We come together because we decide to, because we know it helps everyone. But every one of us still thinks and acts independently. The alien did not respond immediately. Instead, it moved closer to her, its immense body folding in on itself, its various limbs swaying gently with an eerie, almost graceful motion. Sarah could feel the alien's presence invading her space, its massive form looming, yet not threatening. There was an almost gentle curiosity in the way it examined her, examined humanity as a whole. It didn't fully understand, but it was trying. "Then how do you synchronize your actions?" the alien asked again. "Without shared thoughts, without synchronization, how can you advance? Build ships, solve problems, conquer the stars?" Sarah's thoughts churned, searching for the right words to explain something so fundamentally different from the alien's worldview. "We synchronize our actions by communicating," she said, her voice steady, but filled with awe at how deeply this alien species had misunderstood human interaction. "We share ideas, thoughts, and plans. But it's through individual decision-making, through individual thought, that we create things together. No single mind drives the effort. It's a collective effort, but with individual minds contributing their own ideas and solutions. Everyone plays a role, but no one person is more important than another." The alien's limbs shifted again, its focus unwavering. "And your ships," it said slowly, almost reverently, "how do they function? If they are not directed by one mind, how do you ensure their success? How do they work? Can all of you control them at once?" Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine as the alien's question pressed her further into the heart of humanity's greatest triumphs, its technology. "We have machines," she explained, trying to find a simple way to convey the enormity of what the human race had accomplished. Machines that we built to help us. We don't need to be connected by a shared mind to operate them. We have computers, algorithms, and systems that work together to make sure everything functions smoothly. The machines are designed to do the work for us, calculating, adjusting, and moving us through space. But they don't think. They're tools that we use to make progress. The alien seemed to pause, its body still for a long time as it processed her words. Sarah watched as its gaze shifted downward, as if it was contemplating the vastness of space itself and trying to understand how such a concept could exist. It seemed so alien, so foreign, to the alien mind that machines, technology, could function without the collective will of a group mind. What of the future? The alien asked, its voice trembling slightly with the weight of its curiosity. How do you envision your species? If you are so fragmented, if you are so separated, how can you build a future together? Can such individuals truly thrive without merging their minds? Sarah took a deep breath. This question, above all others, carried the weight of her mission. The alien wasn't just questioning human biology or technology, it was questioning humanity's entire way of life. If humanity were to be accepted, understood, and integrated into the greater galactic community, it needed to prove that individuality could thrive, not hinder the species' progress. We don't need to merge our minds to thrive, Sarah said, her voice strong, filled with conviction. It's because we are individuals that we can adapt, solve problems, and innovate. The future is built by people who dare to think for themselves, by people who believe that their unique perspectives can contribute to something greater than themselves. The human race thrives because each person has the freedom to think, to act, and to create. And through that, we come together, voluntarily, by choice. We form partnerships, alliances, and collaborations. Not because we are forced into it, but because we know that doing so leads to something more, something bigger than any single person. The alien was silent for a long time. It was as though Sarah's words had struck at the heart of something it had never considered. And yet, she could feel that the alien was not simply rejecting her ideas. Rather, it was beginning to understand. It didn't have to agree, but it was starting to comprehend the fundamental difference between their species. It wasn't just a gap in understanding technology, or biology, or even communication. It was a gap in perception. The alien had seen the universe as a place where minds were interconnected, a place where everything operated as one. But Sarah had just shown it that there was another way, a way that was just as effective, just as beautiful. We are different, Sarah said quietly, more to herself than to the alien. But that difference is what makes us strong. The alien's eyes flickered slightly, as if acknowledging her words. It may not fully understand the concept of individuality, but it was beginning to see the potential that humanity's differences held. Perhaps, Sarah thought, that was the first step toward true cooperation. Understanding that even in the vastness of the cosmos, there was room for both the collective and the individual to coexist, to thrive. The price of progress. The alien stood motionless, its vast, serpentine form towering over Sarah, as if it were rooted to the ship's floor. The silence in the room was profound, stretching out for what felt like an eternity. Sarah felt a knot of tension in her chest, her thoughts swirling as she tried to gauge the alien's reaction. The conversation had taken unexpected turns, each question pushing deeper into the heart of what it meant to be human. And yet, despite the alien's curiosity, despite its attempts to understand, there was something profoundly unsettling about its presence. It wasn't just the difference in their physiology, nor the vast gap in their comprehension of individual versus collective consciousness. It was the way the alien seemed to think, methodical, almost mechanical in its observations, as if it was trying to solve a problem, rather than engaging in the dialogue that Sarah had hoped for. The alien had been quiet for a while now, its 4 obsidian eyes never leaving Sarah's face. It appeared to be processing her words, but Sarah had learned to recognize that the alien's silence wasn't just passive. It was deliberate, calculating, and possibly even judgmental. There was something deeply ingrained in its nature, an assumption that progress, intelligence, and even survival were tied to the collective. The notion that a species could thrive without shared thought seemed to baffle it. And it was this very idea that had driven the conversation thus far. After what seemed like an eternity, the alien spoke again. Its voice was low and steady, though still filled with a kind of perplexed wonder. You say that humanity thrives because of individuality. But I wonder, what is the cost of such a path? What is the price of this freedom? Sarah blinked, her breath catching in her throat. She hadn't expected this line of questioning. She had been prepared for inquiries into humanity's technological advancements, its political structures, or its social systems, but not this. The alien wasn't simply questioning the foundation of their society. It was questioning the very principle of free will and what it might cost. The weight of its words hung heavily in the air, and Sarah had to steady herself, carefully considering how to respond. "What do you mean by the price of freedom?" she asked, her voice careful but firm. She wasn't sure where this conversation was headed, but she knew that this moment could determine whether they were about to find common ground or drift further apart. The alien's long appendages moved, almost imperceptibly, as though reaching for something invisible. "In our species," it began, "there is no choice. There is no freedom in the way you describe it. There is only unity, unity of thought, unity of purpose. We work as one, all our minds connected, our actions in perfect harmony. Every individual is a part of the whole, and the whole guides us. There is no conflict, no chaos, no misunderstanding. But you choose to live in isolation from each other, each mind thinking for itself. And yet, you still achieve progress, you still move forward. How?" Sarah could feel a tightness in her chest. The alien's words weren't accusatory, but there was an unmistakable note of skepticism in them. To it, humanity's independence wasn't just a curiosity. It was an anomaly. A paradox that seemed both inefficient and wasteful. And yet, this was exactly what had enabled humanity to push forward, to explore the unknown, to thrive in ways no other species had. "It's true," Sarah said slowly, finding her voice again. "Humans don't always work in harmony like your species does. We don't share thoughts, we don't have one unified consciousness. But what we do have is the ability to think for ourselves, to make choices based on our own experiences and ideas. It's not always easy, and it's not always perfect. But that's what makes us who we are." The alien's gaze seemed to sharpen as it leaned forward, its limbs shifting with a fluidity that was almost hypnotic. "And yet," it said, "your species has faced conflict. You have wars, disagreements, and division. If your species cannot think as one, how have you overcome such challenges? What is the cost of all this freedom?" The question hit Sarah like a physical blow. It was the most difficult question she had been asked so far, and she could feel her mind racing to find an answer. She had to remind herself that the alien wasn't asking out of malice. It was genuinely trying to understand. It simply could not grasp the idea that chaos, conflict, and freedom could coexist in a way that led to progress. "There's a cost," Sarah admitted after a long silence. "We've had our struggles. We've had wars, division, and destruction. Our history is full of conflict, because we are individuals, because we don't always agree. But what's important is that we always find a way to move forward. Our freedom means that we can make mistakes, we can fail. But it also means that we have the ability to learn from those mistakes. And we have the ability to choose a better path. No collective mind could ever give us that kind of growth. It's the very act of choosing, of acting as individuals, that allows us to evolve." The alien remained still for a long moment, its immense eyes narrowing as if trying to absorb the enormity of what Sarah was saying. Sarah could feel the weight of its gaze upon her, as though the alien was measuring her words, processing them in a way that was far beyond her comprehension. Finally, it spoke again, but this time there was a hint of something in its voice, something almost like admiration. "Your species is resilient," it said softly. "Despite your division, despite your chaos, you persist. You push forward, always searching for better answers. I do not understand your path, but I can see the strength in it." Sarah's heart swelled with a mixture of pride and uncertainty. She had never thought of humanity as particularly resilient. It was simply how humans were. They didn't give up, even in the face of the greatest challenges. They didn't have the luxury of a collective consciousness guiding them, but they had something far more powerful: their ability to adapt, to change, to think for themselves. "And that's what has allowed us to explore the stars," Sarah said quietly, her voice filled with conviction. "It's our ability to learn, to grow, to innovate. We've reached the farthest corners of the galaxy not because we're perfect, or because we all think the same. We've done it because we each bring something unique to the table. And when we work together, when we share our individual strengths, we can accomplish anything." The alien's eyes seemed to soften ever so slightly, as if something had finally clicked into place. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable this time. It felt almost like a moment of mutual understanding. The alien still didn't fully comprehend humanity's way of thinking, but it was beginning to see the value in it. It was beginning to see that perhaps the strength of humanity wasn't in spite of their individuality, but because of it. "Perhaps," the alien said finally, its voice quiet and measured, "there is more to your species than I thought." It was a simple statement, but it was the first sign that the alien was truly starting to understand humanity, not as a problem to be solved or a species to be absorbed, but as something unique, something valuable. "Perhaps there is more to be learned," Sarah replied, her heart lifting with the hope that this was only the beginning of their journey together. A new dawn. The room grew quieter after the exchange, as if the alien's words were settling into Sarah's mind. She could feel the subtle tension in the air, the weight of everything they had shared pressing down upon her. The alien's questions had been difficult, challenging her to look at humanity's nature in ways she had never considered before. It wasn't that she had never thought about the flaws and costs of individuality, the wars, the chaos, the misunderstandings, but those struggles were part of the human journey. They were woven into the very fabric of who humans were, and with each mistake they learned, they grew, and they found ways to build something better. Now, though, there was a shift. The alien, once an enigma, was no longer a distant foreign being. It was not just a creature of intellect. It was an explorer too, much like humanity. It had ventured into the depths of space to find something more, something beyond its own understanding. And now, that search had led it to humanity, to the strange, chaotic, but beautiful species that called themselves humans. Sarah could sense the alien's growing curiosity, its desire to know more. It wasn't just about technology or about how humanity survived in the vastness of space. It was about something deeper, something that reached into the very heart of what it meant to be a living, thinking being. "How does your species?" the alien began, its voice hesitant now, as though it was carefully considering its words. "How do you find meaning in a world where minds are not connected? Where you cannot share thoughts instantly?" Sarah turned to face the alien, her eyes meeting its dark, glistening ones. She had never realized just how profound the question was until it was asked aloud. Meaning. What was meaning, and how did humans find it when they were so separated, so different from one another? "It's a difficult thing to explain," Sarah said slowly, her voice soft as she thought about the question. "But I'll try. For humans, meaning doesn't come from being connected as one mind. It comes from our ability to experience the world around us, through our senses, our emotions, and our relationships. We seek meaning in the small moments, the things that make us feel alive. It's in our connections with each other, the way we help one another, and the way we fight for what we believe in." The alien remained silent, its massive frame still as it absorbed her words. Its gaze softened, a flicker of understanding, or perhaps curiosity, dancing across its expressionless face. Sarah wondered what it was thinking. Could it fathom the idea that meaning was something found in the moments of everyday life? That it wasn't about vast networks of thought, but about individual experiences that shaped each person's view of the universe. Do you believe that your species can change the universe? The alien's question was filled with a strange intensity, an almost hopeful note underlying its mechanical tone. Can your individuality, your independence, truly shape the future of this galaxy? The question echoed in Sarah's mind, reverberating with the weight of everything she had learned from this encounter. Humanity had always believed that they could change the world, that their progress would make a mark on history. But could they truly change the universe? Could they leave an imprint so significant that it would resonate across the stars?